Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today on the live stream, we are, how do I say that? We're welcoming our good friend Bronwyn Short. Now, I knew this was going to happen. Bronwyn Shortino, author of 3 books, 20 years as a high-powered executive, and the founder of Chic Life. And today we're going to be talking about breaking all the rules. So, Bronwyn, thank you for joining me on the live stream today.
Hi, Daniel. It's so great to be here, and I can't wait to see where our conversation takes us.
Well, as we were talking offline before, a lot of our friends here in Southeast Asia, they're really held back by fears of making a mistake. They also have these fears of losing their stability, and because of the way the world is at the moment, they're transitioning from being employed to now being self-employed. And this is an area of your life that you've mastered. You've had 20 years as a high-powered executive, but you've now had to learn how to break the rules. So if we go to your website, chiclife.com, you make it very clear here that the secret to getting ahead in life is to break the rules. What does that mean?
Well, we have been given throughout our lives so much conditioning, and that conditioning tells us what we can and can't do, how we can and can't do that, and the things that are appropriate and not appropriate for us to do in life. And as we grow up, we shape and mold ourselves to fit within those rules. And what happens is we go through life and we're constantly, creating this version of ourselves that is what we think is the best version of that will be accepted in the world. And what that does is it forces us to hide parts of ourselves. It forces us to move away from things that we might love to do because at some point somebody's told us it's not right for us. And so we end up going through life creating this version of ourselves that we think everyone else is going to love. And along the way, that leaves a hole within us. And as we get older, we start to realize that something's missing and something's not working. And we become more and more stressed. We start doing more and more things in the hope that that might fulfill this need within us. But actually, the thing that really helps us to move past that is to start looking at the rules that we've been given, the things that people have told us we have to do, we need to do, the boxes that we need to tick to get ahead. And we need to start marking off the things that aren't right for us. And we need to start really using the power of questions to help us to consciously connect with what we're doing and start to really understand what's important to us, create our values around that, and then start to shape our life aligned with our values so that we can move forward in a really different way.
One of the challenges that I see in Southeast Asia here is people are getting caught up with perfectionism. And they're trying so hard to get everything perfect. And eventually what happens, they end up procrastinating and they go into avoidance behavior and they get nothing done. But they got 100% of nothing done right. So yeah. You're the expert in this area. You've written the book on perfectionism. Talk to us about perfectionism. And I think I'd like to start here is, how does it hurt people? How does this perfectionism hurt people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is pretty much the catalyst that created my life now. So in my, 2 decades in the corporate world, I pushed myself so hard and so far and for so long trying to prove to everybody that my life was perfect, trying to do everything for everybody else, be everything that everybody else needed. And my life shattered in less than 60 seconds. So I went from being an award-winning executive to on the floor, unable to stop crying and unable to cope in the basics of life in less than a minute, because I had just pushed myself so hard for so long doing what everybody else told me was the right thing to do. And I was so far away from who I was. There wasn't anything in my life that was joyful, or there was no laughter, there was no happiness. It was all just completely focused on, being that swan gliding across the surface effortlessly. But underneath, I was just using up so much energy trying to show the world that everything was great. It fuels so much stress in our lives. It brings burnout forward. It creates so much in the way of ill health. We're seeing so many different, diseases like type 2 diabetes and autoimmune disease, strokes, cardiovascular events in so many people so much younger now, because so many people are just trying to get it right constantly. And they're taking on so much in their life that they just can't get anything done and done well. So that perfection is the thing that really drove my life. I 100% understand the role and the impact that it can have. And the things that I learned during my recovery, created Keep It Super Simple, Tips from a Recovering Perfectionist, which is my first book. And then it has also now created a global business for me, because there's so many people suffering from this, and they just don't need to.
I remember when I first started my training business, I would exhaust myself trying to get things right. And I'd go out there and I'd make sure my banners were printed on the best material. I'd make sure I had the best linen. I'd make sure I had multiple different types of coloured pens and expensive ones for people to use. I'd get the scent diffuser in the room. I paid an extra $1,000 for the projector.
Yeah.
And nobody even recognised it.
No.
I'd spent hours preparing the room and nobody complimented me on it. And then I realised that I would do all these other things for perfection. And one day I woke up and I realised that my closest competitor, who hadn't washed, who didn't use deodorant, who didn't use cologne, who was cutting his own hair, who didn't brush his teeth, was making more money than me.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, I've gone to all this effort and it didn't pay off. And then I had the exact opposite, exceeding my results and making more money. And I started to realise maybe I'm putting more attention on this than other people. And I also realised recently that this had just caused me to use up so much energy, useless energy that I could have put in other places. So
or I didn't need to use it all.
Or use it all. So when you press the reboot button, how do you reboot your life from a recovering perfectionist?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to have a look at is busyness, because I think busyness is the best friend of a perfectionist. Busyness helps you create that facade that everything's under control, that you're involved in everything, that you're needed, you're wanted, you're all of those things. So really, I think start to have a look at busyness, because I'm so busy is one of the most commonly used phrases today. And it is only, second probably to I'm so stressed. And it's also in good company with I'm so exhausted. And it's interesting how those three things go together. But busyness in itself, we all are really, accomplished at saying I'm so busy. But how many of us actually stop to have a look at what we're actually busy doing? Because when we stop and have a look at that, most of us realize that there's so many things on our plate that rip our energy out of our system, that takes up so much attention and time. We don't enjoy doing them. It's not really affecting anybody's life with us doing them. We're just filling our day to maybe have something that we can put into social media to say, hey, look at me, look what I did today. So, there is so much that you can do when you just look at what you're busy with.
There's a statistic there for salespeople, and it says the average salesperson spends 90 minutes a day face-to-face or ear-to-ear in selling. And the rest of the day is spent in preparation.
Yep.
And it's quite interesting that the time that they spend in preparation is useless. And if they had used that more wisely, they could have doubled or tripled their sales results in a day. Yep. But as I look into sales businesses, I see that people are suffering for perfectionism. Well, I've got to get the right papers in order. I've got to get the staple in the right place. I've got to make sure this is right, that's right, that's right. Yep. And they still haven't picked up the phone. And so again, they're putting their energy in the wrong places. And in a lot of businesses around the world, as we talk about energy, is 80% of their time is spent on non-productive activities that lead to no results whatsoever.
Yep.
But they can say, I'm busy. Look at me. I'm shuffling these papers. I'm running around the office. I got here at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm still here at 7 p.m. at night. I must be busy.
Yep.
But busyness and results should not be confused. And for salespeople, let's say if you're selling 90 minutes a day, I'd prefer to see people go in and do 90 minutes worth of work really well and go home and not fool themselves and not fool others. It would be a much better place to live in.
Well, it's certainly a much healthier place for them as well, because that that, the remaining, 6.5 hours, if you're looking at a standard 8-hour day, and most people don't work a standard 8-hour day, most people work a lot longer than that. If you look at those extra hours, the way that you could actually use that more beneficially for yourself, looking after yourself, recharging yourself so you've got more to give to the world, it's incredible.
There's a really nice book written years ago, and it was talking about the Sabbath. And it said that if you take a 36-hour sabbatical from work, so at 6 p.m. on a Saturday night, you turn all your devices off, you don't do any work, and you resume work again 6 a.m. on Monday morning, they actually say you'll be 400% more productive on Monday when you take that 36-hour sabbatical. And so we know that if you take time off to recharge, you're far more effective. The question is, why don't people do it? Is it because they get what we call in Asia, we call it pie, pats on the back? Do they get pats on the back for looking busy and they become accustomed to that? Is that what it is? What is it?
I think we've moved into a world where everything is so highly visible now. It's not that long ago that we didn't have all these smartphones and smart tablets and that connection 24/7. There was no social media. There was really only emails, and you had the emails that were in your computer at your desk at work. We're sort of only a couple of decades into having these, laptops and the portability of connection, if you like. And I think, especially now with social media, it's become so incredibly important that you are seen, and that you're seen to be doing, and that you're seen to be achieving. And, we see this environment where, the things that are posted into social media is always somebody's A game. It's, look at all the fantastic stuff that's happening in my life. And then as you as an individual start looking at that and you start comparing that with your real life, the two don't match. And they don't match because you're comparing somebody's virtual reality with your real life. And your real life has all the ups and downs, the challenges, the everyday things that a real life has. And you're comparing that with this virtual excellence. And so if you don't have the game and the photos and the videos and the events and the awards and the accolades and pats on the shoulder to stand up against that, it feels like you're falling behind. And so with that comes this stress and this need to be constantly, checking your email, checking your messages, checking everything, because you might miss out on something. And if you miss out on something, if you put your phone down on Friday night and don't pick it up again until Monday morning, what might happen in that time frame that you might miss out on? And then you might be even further behind. And it starts to create this massive spiral of stress that it feels like if you don't step into the game, then you're going to be left behind. And I think it's one of those things where, we've all heard that saying, no pain, no gain. Well, I think now today it's no stress, no success. And that just drives, it sits in this, invisible underlay of life, and it just drives you. And, one of the things that I spend every day teaching people is there's a really different way to live. And that rule there, no stress equals no success, that's one of the biggest rules that we should all start breaking, because it's so not true.
I couldn't agree more. I love it. No pain, no gain, no stress, no success. We do build monuments to our struggles. I was over in West Africa, in Senegal, and they'd built a monument to slavery. And it was huge. It's sort of about 100 foot high. And then I started to look around the world, and there was monuments built to our struggles. But there was no monuments built to stress without success without stress.
Yeah.
No, it was everywhere. And I think this is probably part of our culture, the little Aussie battler. Why do you have to battle? Why do you have to battle? Can't you do it without
because you've
stress?
been told. You've been told that's a rule.
Fascinating. I love it. Now, for somebody who's experiencing perfectionism at the moment and they're really not sure what's holding them back, what would be 2 or 3 warning signs that perfectionism is holding them back?
For everybody, it's really different, right? So what I'll do is I'll share with you what mine were, because they might be triggers for you to have a think about what might be happening in your life. But bear in mind that these were mine and it might not be the same for you. You might have variations of this and yours might be completely different. For me, the biggest driver for me was I wasn't good enough. I was so hard on myself and I struggled with enough. And funnily enough, my second book's called The Economy of Enough. So it's all about that. But it's, that battle with enough. I was not good enough in any area of my life. I punished myself no matter what it was. I mean, I won awards as an executive and I still wasn't good enough. I reached a really high level in netball and I still wasn't good enough. It didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter who told me otherwise. I was really hard on myself, and that inner voice drove me relentlessly. It was so harsh, so demeaning, so nasty. If your best friend spoke to you like that, they'd be your best friend for about 3 seconds. But I let this voice in my head drive me constantly. So that's the first thing, that battle with not being good enough. The second thing is it's almost like an out of control inner strength that just keeps pushing you and pushing you and pushing you way past the point where any sane person would know to stop. I like to say that, there's all these definitions of burnout. I had all of them and I just pushed through them anyway. It was, I was burnt out for years and I still kept going. And I found a way to find strength where no strength should ever have been found. I pushed and pushed and pushed until I had nothing left in the tank. And then I found a way to find more outside the tank somewhere. So it's that relentless drive, if you like, to just keep going and going and going and going, no matter the cost to yourself.
Fascinating insight.
Sorry?
Such a fascinating insight. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think the third one really is that you are so busy creating the facade that you literally don't even stop for a second to consider the physical, mental, and emotional impact on yourself. It's like this little voice just comes up and says, hang on, and you just go, no, later, go away. And you have this ability to just shut down the warning signs, and you just keep going and going and going. And none of it is in your own best interests. Everything is in the interests of the facade, the external presence. None of it is looking for a balance or a protection, I guess, of yourself as an extraordinary human being.
Wonderful insights, and I think I was ticking the list there as you were going through. 80% definitely apply to me, and the other 20%, my wife will tick the boxes and say, yes, that's Daniel.
Okay.
and it's so true. We have to learn to stop. I really believe that. We've got to learn to stop, and we've got to learn to know these red flags as well. Because if nobody's ever taught us, then we're going to keep pushing through. But I believe with these ideas that you've shared, it also gives people permission to actually stop and take a break and to reset. I think it's so important. Because without that reboot, you're just going to become the same person tomorrow as you were yesterday. And if you weren't happy yesterday, you're not going to be happy tomorrow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think also that the concept of stopping is really frightening to people who are caught in the spiral. So again, let's break the rule. Let's break the rules and say, okay, we don't have to stop. If we don't stop, how can we do this differently? And so that's where I like to really just break things down into small steps, because as soon as you start to say, I have to stop, everybody goes straight to overwhelm, because it's just, well, that will mean this and that will mean that, and then that will cause this and that will affect that. And it just becomes too big for us to deal with. So if instead we sort of say, if you think about a compass, and if you've got a compass on your hand and you're walking directly north, and so for you to do things differently, all it means is you walk to 1 degree off north. You just slightly change direction, but that will significantly change where you end up. And I think we just apply that concept to life as well. And so instead of, if we looked at it from the compass point of view and said that stopping meant that we have to suddenly turn south and go in a different direction, then that seems to be out of control and I can't cope with that. But if we say we've just got to walk 1 degree off north, then that seems to be so much more doable. So, maybe we start to have a look at it and just say, what is one thing that's really affecting my life right now? And we come up with that one thing. And then you say, okay, well, what's one simple thing that I could do to change how I experience that? And then that one simple thing, what are 3 simple steps I could do to help me have that one thing that I do a little bit differently? And then just start with the first step. It just is so much easier when we can control the size of what we're doing rather than just going to overwhelm and it all just feels too hard.
Something that popped up into my mind then, I was working with some business people a couple of years ago, and they said to me, Daniel, we're afraid of taking our foot off the accelerator pedal. I said, why is that? They said, because we're afraid that we're going to lose traction, because all we've done is work through all of our time, all of our energy, all of our money at this, and now we're afraid to stop. And so it was the fear of losing traction for them that was so scary. And eventually, once they took the foot off the pedal, the interesting thing is the business actually grew. Although they thought they had their foot on the accelerator pedal, it acted more like a brake.
Yeah.
But once they learned to take a step back, business grew, and they would be 3 or 4 times the size they are today. However, it's more manageable. It's easier for them.
Yeah.
Now, Melanie said here, she said, wow, that's what I'm feeling right now, needing a rest for a while. It's okay to rest. Make sure you head over to chiclife.com, Melanie, and pick up one of Bronwyn's book. It'll do you very well. Now, Bronwyn, 3 quick questions for you. In your life, what frustrates you the most?
Entitlement. Definitely entitlement. I see so many people get caught in being so entitled about what they're owed, what they're due, what their rights are, and they can't see the way that that's holding them in place and keeping them stuck in the rules. So for me, absolutely entitlement. Just please drop it.
Now, outside of perfectionism, what one mental or emotional block has held you back the most throughout your life?
Definitely that I'm not good enough. That for me has been massive, letting that go and really learning the art of self-compassion and that ability to, I guess, truly honor the unique and extraordinary human being that I am, and then being able to take that out into the world and teach people how to acknowledge and honor their own uniqueness.
And for somebody who had the same mental block, if they didn't feel that they were good enough, what advice would you share with them so they could move through this really quickly?
Yeah, I would say there's a great exercise in, I think it's the Economy of Enough, called the I Am exercise. And if it's not in there, it's in the my online program for women. And that is all about spending time really just writing down all the things that you are. Who are you? What are your characteristics? What are the things that you are amazing at? And it's a really interesting exercise to do, because so many people get stuck in the things that they think they're allowed to say as part of that exercise, and the things that you don't want to say because people think that you are big noting yourself or those sorts of things. They're the things you really need to get to, because they're the things that make you extraordinary. So things like, a lot of people don't like to say I'm intelligent, or, I'm incredible at woodwork, or those sorts of things. But the more you can get in and really start to write down the things that you are incredible at, the things that make you unique, the more that you can start to really create the processes that can help you to just get past that I'm not good enough. And I would also say we have been taught that criticism and judgment is the first filter that we use when we're looking at what's happening in the world. And we do that so that we can go straight into a comparison of where we are in conjunction with all of that. So somebody walks down the street and their skirt's the wrong length. We immediately go into judgment of, perhaps that that isn't an appropriate length of skirt. And then we immediately judge, well, where's my skirt in length, and what does that make me in comparison? If we can start to drop that and just sit with the I ams, and when we see things in the outside world that don't match with our I ams, we simply go into, that's an I am not characteristic. That's okay. That's that person's choice. I am this. This is where I'm going. That's where I'm putting my energy. And so suddenly life becomes easier because we don't have to worry about where we're at in comparison. We just have to worry about who we are as an extraordinary human being.
Wonderful advice. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from the expert, Bronwyn Shortino. And make sure you head over to the website, chiclife.com. Bronwyn, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and also letting us have an insight into the mind of a recovering perfectionist. Very insightful.
Thanks, Daniel. And I will say that there is a free email series, 7 Steps to Beat Stress Forever, on my website. So make sure that you sign up and take advantage of all of that too.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on the live stream. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. We'll be back here at 3 p.m. Taiwan time and 6 p.m. Sydney. Bronwyn, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Ladies
Bye.
and gentlemen, we'll see you soon. Ciao for now.